Coming up next on Meet the Farmer TV.
This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Nelly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design.
I used to feel like it was an uphill battle, and now the interest around sustainability, local regional food systems, it's the rage.
Yeah.
I mean, local food is hot. It's one of the hottest trends, if maybe the hottest trend they've seen in decades in the food sector. My joke is, I used to go to parties and people say, "What do you do for work?" I say, "I work in ag policy." And all of a sudden I'd be alone with my gin and tonic in a corner of the room. Now I say I work in ag policy and people say, "Cool, tell me more about it. I want to learn more." So there's this opening of a window now for a conversation about American agriculture that I haven't seen before in my professional life. The average age of farmers and ranchers in this country, 57 years of age. 30% decline of farmers under the age of 25. 30% decline, and a 20% increase in the number of farmers over the age of 75. We need to find ways to ensure young people have the ability to take over production of the nation's food supply in the next half century. We've got to keep rural America strong, to keep agriculture strong, and keep the nation strong. So if we know that average Americans don't know enough about where their food comes from, we need to start getting at them really young. And I used to think, oh, this is a myth. People think their food comes from a grocery store. And then I worked in urban Chinatown in Boston, and I was working with third graders in a school in Chinatown. 80% of the kids were from families below the poverty line. And I started a garden-based curriculum in the school because our research found that children who have that experiential learning actually do better on their science scores and standardized tests, because the third, fourth grade, a lot of it's about plant science. They had better understanding of environmental issues, and their willingness to try and their actual consumption of fruits and vegetables increased.
I call it the new American agriculture in America. It is happening, and it's going to change much. It's going to fracture the commercial distribution systems, because people won't be saying, oh, I want to get some corn out of Iowa to eat. If they will do without rather than eat something that tastes substandard. So the markets are opening up. More and more people commercially are developing gardens, truck gardens, orchards, and the byproducts will be things like someone at some time is going to say, I have a surplus of apples and I'm going to dry these apples and bag them and sell them. So you've got a whole cottage industry there, as well as the cider, and you're changing the form of these. It's so portable. You can, an apple you can put in your pocket and walk around for a week, pull it out and eat it and enjoy it. But with strawberries, it would be another story. So there are fresh fruits, fresh vegetables becoming indelible now in their taste memories. So people will deny themselves rather than eat something that doesn't taste very good. That is happening throughout the nation, the United States, as well as abroad. And I think what is, for the first time, people are discovering that we really don't need to can pumpkin in California and ship the can to Virginia. The energy that is expended is enormous, and it costs more for the market, and it costs more for the very preparation of it. And when it arrives and the can is opened and someone makes a pie out of it or whatever, it doesn't taste good. So pumpkins will keep more. Halloween pumpkin growers should grow the pie pumpkins so that people will discover that not only can they make them fresh at Halloween, but they can can the pumpkin and have it available the year round. I think a lot of them are going to be the businesses themselves they will be models. Very much as Albemarle Cider Works is for cider, Vintage Virginia Apples is for orchards. They have full education programs too, which I'm involved. And this will be part of the model that will be followed. At the same time, I think the consumer is going to be demanding it. And I like to take even a few steps further back and like to think that our whole agriculture education system that was based on the land-grant universities is going to change. Whereas the over-specialization that they have, someone can actually take a degree in vegetable gardening rather than a specific disease that attacks a kumquat. So it will be sort of a slow evolution of education and consumer demand that will, within, this is going out on a limb, but within a decade, I think Americans will be healthier, they will be happier, and because if you don't eat good foods, you're going to be an unhappy person. Eating if you find a real ripe peach or apple, find yourself a corner, sit down, cut it, smell it for a while, and even give it a little lick and enjoy that flavor, and then slowly, take 10 minutes or 15 minutes to eat the apple. It is the best form of meditation you can do. I think the focus on obesity, particularly with children, is really looming, and those who are very dedicated educators are going to say, this child in my class has a learning problem because he is or she is 40 pounds overweight. It is a medical problem that should be addressed by the parents, and it is the role of the educators to point it out, to form an alliance with the parents to say your child needs to change its diet. There are things, and it's been tried in the vending. You can go into the schools today, which I have done, and observe what is in the vending machines. There are many options, there are many alternatives to it. Besides good orange juice, you can have good locally made and bottled apple juice of whatever fruits happen to be for that locality. If you are in an area where you don't, certainly the cost of getting them from a nearby source will be less than importing them from abroad. We will need to explore expanding our marketplaces where you will be able to go into to a city and you might have 10 different places that are vending things that are brought from the country. We also need to address it politically in the sense that regulation is necessary, but you cannot over-regulate these people out of business. When I was a boy and was selling, at my father's suggestion, Hickory King roasting ears in the Lynchburg City Market at the age of 7, he wanted to teach me to be a good capitalist and earn the money. And it needed a bit of regulation then. There was slabs of raw meat on tables being sold, fly-laden. There was raw, abused products that were probably not too healthy, but it was probably healthier than what you get in the packaged food market today. When you are again in the food market, I would suggest people look around at what people are buying, the packaged products, and then pick one of those up and look at the ingredients. You will find that you are eating something that has become, may as well be plastic, inert. And they can really sell you a bill of goods too on things. So not only do we need to get in our secondary schools good programs on economics, how to buy, how to keep a bank account. These need to be imperatives in the secondary schools. But also, part of that whole thing, take people out, show them how to shop, how to buy these products and what to look for. And I find a lot of people come to me, young couples, and will say, let me tell you my lifestyle, what am I doing wrong? And I am delighted to tell them. And there are many out there who have developed a healthy, wholesome, harmonious lifestyle, and how different from some of their peers who have $20,000 on their credit card and don't know how to recognize the pleasures, the simple pleasures of life. They never, in buying anything, ask the big question, do I really need this? And follow it with, can I afford this? That is, that once they step over the line, whether buying packaged food or not, they begin to develop compensations for it. There is you can go into certain places, like even in airports a lot, and most of the time when I walk in, I can sort of feel a general anger. People are angry, and I think if it's an early flight at 6 o'clock, well, I bet they didn't eat a very good breakfast, not even a bowl of blueberries. So that is, and they arrive and they get stressed, and then they want to get something laden with sugar that they will put in their system, and then that day was not going to go very well. So recognition of all of these things that make one unhappy, I think, is important, and one of the main things is eating. And when you do eat, you sit down, or you can even stand and do it, but you think, I am eating, this is really good. And I wonder how those string beans that I bought down from Farmer Joe are going to taste. Oh, I'm going to eat one now. These are so good. Why have I been buying this awful stuff and eating it? So if the process of eating becomes a happening, an experience, people will be more aware of what they eat and how they eat, and quite frankly, with whom they are eating, because the joy of meal of a table conversation is a lost art.
You know, there is a kind of an allopathic use of nutrients, but I still always go back. You can treat it acutely, but then you're always really want to get it from your food, because we're dependent on transportation, we're dependent on petrochemical industry. Who makes the capsules? Who makes the bottles? Who transports it? So obviously, you know, this whole gathering, everything your show is about local. Where can I get my medicine? Who's growing my medicine? Where's it grow? And there's many traditions, the Tibetan medicine, Chinese medicine, that say when you harvest your medicine, and I'm sure this applies to food, within a 70-mile radius, that medicine has a vibration 10, 12, 15 times stronger than if I bought my herbs from a grower in California, which I do, because I have a lot of graduate students. They're starting herb farms, but we buy pounds of herbs for our clinic. And so where am I going to get pounds? I've got to go to California. They're great plants, it's great medicine, but it's not as though it was grown in the Blue Ridge and had that whole essence of the Blue Ridge. It's an exciting time now because we want to pick the best of all the different worlds. But for somebody to be on a medication for the rest of their life, for high blood pressure, for a newcomer to this type 2 diabetes, that's criminal. They don't need to do that. And if there's a way that our country can begin to understand, I don't have to be on this medication. I don't have to do what they tell me to do. I can take this. I can understand how food alone and walking a mile a day can lower my blood pressure. That's revolutionary. Eat some oatmeal and put slippery elm powder on your oatmeal and astragalus, and, you know, again, using the plant medicines. You know, in India, China, they don't separate. You go into a Chinese hospital, they have the diagnosis, and then they have the recipe and the formula for what soup you eat. And we all know the atrocious food we get in hospitals. It's antithetical in our modern, you know, advanced first world nation, where, you know, the basic, most fundamental medicine we should be getting in a hospital is absolutely devoid of any nutrition. So traditional peoples in their traditional hospitals will have the diet as a prescription. And then they'll put the herbs and the roots and the different, you know, in that food. And that's heaven to me.
If every American ate one meal a week, just one meal of locally produced food, it can be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it would save 1.1 million barrels of oil a week. The food that you buy, that we buy, that's grown within 100 miles, it may have been picked yesterday or that morning before you buy it. All the vitamins that are in that food, all of the enzymes that are in that food are still intact. We're getting living, healthy food to keep our bodies healthy, to keep our immune system healthy. Whereas the trucks transporting the food from agribusiness farms can be 5, maybe even 8 days old. Food that you buy that's grown here locally is fresh, it's picked when it's ripe, and it still has all of its life-giving vitamins, minerals, and enzymes.
As you may or may not realize, that food travels about 1,500 miles to get to your table. And that is a lot of distance to travel for food. It has impact on the environment, it has impact on energy in terms of use of petrol. It also has impact on the climate because of pollution which it causes. Transportation causes about 62% of the CO2 pollution. And I think we need to realize that when we eat local food, we are also protecting the environment for ourselves and our fellow human beings. Local food provides local jobs. Money circulates within this economy so that you are using again and again the resources we have instead of sending it out to somewhere else. What I want to encourage people is to not only to talk about local food, but also do actually producing themselves. When my children were small, I produced vegetables in my own gardens so that they can see where the food comes from. Instead of getting food from grocery store, they know whether it comes from earth. As somebody said, the beans don't come from the can, they come from the plant. And so that is important to realize and remember and teach children the importance of fresh food and green food, vegetables.
And there's nothing particularly special about any of these items, but the total cost was more than $6, and that's pretty striking. So we have a tomato that's a couple of dollars, which tells you something. It's a signal first that if you are looking for inexpensive food, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find it by buying something that's traveled hundreds of miles. Actually, you may find that the cheaper food is something grown locally. Increasingly, those of us who teach in urban planning and architecture understand that food production, local food production, is an important part of what we've got to think about in terms of what a community needs, in terms of its infrastructure. And so, in addition to the sort of conventional forms of infrastructure that we think of, streets and sewer systems and lighting and all those sort of things that cities need, we also need to be thinking about food. There is an interest in expanding this infrastructure to green things, generally the kind of services provided by the trees and watersheds and so on. But food is another way of thinking about community infrastructure. And we need that infrastructure. And supporting local food is about sending dollars, supporting the economics of local food production, ensuring that local food production infrastructure will still be around.
Slow food is all about, well, let's just say the name, you can take it somewhat literally. It's the opposite of fast food. It's about food being an important part of your life, something to be savored and respected rather than rushed through. It means different things to different people. For some people it's about local ingredients. For some people it's about farming that is gentle on the earth and avoiding monoculture and pesticides and so on. For some people it's about food traditions, It's about knowing about our culinary history, what our grandparents ate and what our ancestors ate, that being recipes, ingredients, and so on. And for a lot of people it's just about making food a central part of our lives. Instead of driving through a McDonald's, sorry McDonald's, it's about savoring and relaxing. It used to be that the family communal meal was the most important time of the day for bonding in a family, and for neighbors and villages and so on to get together to exchange news, to share each other's lives. Now, how much of it is about dashing out the door and having a breakfast bar that you open up, toss the wrapper, and chow down on your way running off to something? And we're not saying anybody that does those things is evil, but we are saying that there's a rich history and tradition and important part of life to be enjoyed that we need maybe to get back to a little bit.
Slow food was started about 22 years ago now in Italy, in the Piedmont region of Italy.
In Italy?
In Italy, right.
Why in Italy?
Well, the story legend goes that Italy always said they would never have fast food. Fast food would never infiltrate Italy. About 22 years ago, they situated the first McDonald's in Italy at the foot of the Spanish Steps in Rome. So a bunch of food journalists got together and said, we can't have this. We're going to start an organization or a movement and call it Slow Food in opposition to fast food.
Okay.
So that's basically how it started, and it's a bit of a story, but it was something that was ongoing for a while, because a lot of the food producers and the food writers and the wine writers started to realize that the traditional foods in Italy that had been produced for hundreds of years were no longer being produced, and they were afraid that it would become extinct, just like animals can become extinct. So they decided to start this movement, which would exist for several purposes or several reasons, but one of them was to prevent food and processes of certain kinds of food, the traditional ways to make different foods, prevent that from becoming extinct. And slow food also promotes biodiversity of food. And it also promotes fairness to the people that produce the food, paying the producer or the farmer or the breeder or what have you with a fair wage for what they produce, so that they will be encouraged to continue doing that. I think one of the reasons that a lot of these foods stopped or were in danger of extinction is because the children of the families that made them didn't see a future in it. They wanted to move to the big cities and enter more profitable trades, such as the IT industry, for instance. And they gave up living on the farm and doing what their fathers and their forefathers had done. So a lot of people in Italy saw this as a great danger. And food is very important to Italians, as it is to, many people around the Mediterranean region. So they created this movement, and it caught on. It became really popular, and it's now an international organization or movement. It's increased in America alone exponentially. We have hundreds of chapters. So that's one of the ways, that's the structure of slow food, is to create a chapter in a region. And you have a chapter leader, and you have other people who do various jobs within the chapter. And the chapters hold events. They hold tasting events, food education, taste education events, where they would bring some of these foods that are in danger of becoming extinct to the public attention. And they would have them, and people would taste them, and they would see how wonderful they were, and then they would encourage people to grow them or continue breeding the animals that produce them, or continue making that particular type of cheese or wine, for instance, or salsa or what have you. And then market the food item so that stores would buy it. And so it attracts people, you know, who are just passionate about food and really hate the idea of food in America being comprised mostly of fast food like McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's, you know, there's so many reasons why that is not good food. It's really bad for us. It's unhealthy. It doesn't taste good. It masks our taste buds with all the fat and the salt. And it's not good for the environment. I mean, there's so many reasons why we need to have good food in this country. I think that Americans have come to believe that food should be cheap. And that's the first big mistake. Food cannot be cheap. It costs a lot of money to produce good food, and you need to pay the people that produce it a fair wage, a living wage. People in America have not been in the tradition of sitting down and enjoying a meal with their family or their friends. They're always rushing. We live in a very fast society, and they're always rushing to do something else. So they really can't appreciate it, and they can't take the time to prepare a meal. So, you know, all of these things combined kind of produced where we are today with the terrible food situation that we're in today. And it's so connected to everything else that we need to fix in our culture and our society. Fast food contributes to the environmental degradation that we have today, because if you have to truck your food from great distances, you're using a lot of fossil fuel that you know, is then polluting the environment. And in trucking food from great distances, you're losing the taste and you're losing the nutrition. So when people eat that, their immune system becomes dysfunctional, and they're getting sicker.
This program is a production of Meet the Farmer TV, LLC, in association with Planet Earth Diversified, Nelly Productions, and Leslie P. Jenkins Photography and Graphic Design. For additional information and extended versions of this program, visit our website, www.meetthefarmer.com.